Welcome to Harley on the Headlines. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it. We've got some really interesting stuff today. Voters in the 7th Congressional District just west of Nashville, Tennessee, turned out yesterday and said essentially no to electing a socialist. It was a special election to replace Republican Mark Green, who had enough of Washington and called it a political day. The far left actually thought it had a shot at getting one of their own elected in Tennessee, the volunteer state, the state where men heard what was happening at the Alamo in Texas, grabbed a gun and went on the run to help out and stayed in the fight right to the bitter end. That's the state. Still today, we remember the Alamo and we remember Tennessee and its freedom-loving volunteers. Matt Von Epps won the race and the endorsement of President Trump. Democrats spent millions of dollars trying to slide a far-left Democrat into the seat, but Afton Bain might have some politics in her, but it would work a whole lot better in Oregon. I mean, for Pete's sake, she said she hated Nashville and country music, didn't much like Tennessee, and wanted to upend everything with socialist politics, and thought they might elect her to Congress. Seems to have a glitchy elevator, that one. Anyway, here's what might be happening in this country. Democrats, a great many of them, suffer from an actual mental malady, a psychological psychosis called Trump derangement syndrome. It's no longer just a nickname for some odd-acting people. It's become a diagnosable disease, not according to me, but according to some non-political psychiatrists. As a political tactic, making everything about Donald Trump has not worked and is obviously a loser of a tactic because status quo, accepting and living with the swamp creatures has been the only offered alternative. Now they're desperate. They're willing to sell out America wholesale and get in bed with socialists, communists, enemies of America. Enemies from within in this case, but enemies of personal freedom and liberty for sure, because it is part of what defines socialism. It's like an ugly cycle of carbuncles and boils on your ass. You get rid of them because the people relearn what a soul-sapping philosophy socialism actually is, and freedom can flourish again. Then a new generation of political children arrives, living in a land of plenty with relative freedom, and they're easily seduced. And here we go again with the carbuncles. Partly because they're ignorant, meaning they don't know better, and partly because experience has not been their teacher. Their teachers are a bunch of left-leaners themselves who live cloistered in academia, where socialism as an idea holds so much sway, where the actual Kool-Aid makers live and suck the life out of our young people by living in a world of gaslighting the lie. If only we could do it, they tell themselves. We could do communism better than it's been done elsewhere. Taking from the rich and giving to everyone to level things out. Great idea. As Barack Obama said, how much money do you really need anyway? Apocryphal on his part. He's been all about adding to his own pot of gold ever since. You don't see him or any of his ilk actually saying, okay, I've made a few million. That's it. I'm good. I'll keep making tons more, and I'll just turn it over to the bloated government to give away. We'll call it free stuff. As I started to say, here's what's happening in America, maybe, hopefully. Trump is not just about the orange man or the snowplow truck of change that he has been in Washington. Trump is the return of an idea. He represents, in fact, the only idea, and it is an old one, that has any chance of saving this country from going down the drain. I'm not talking about the political drain of watching the insanity of communism take over American government, though that's part of it. I'm talking about a simpler thing than that. Going broke, bankrupt, and eventually out of business as the world's top economic power. I mean, technically we are broke. We're so far in debt, we're almost to the point where we can't make enough money if we gave it all to the debt. But If that happens, the countries that would supplant us are run by communists. And we're talking about China primarily. Why? Because that is what China has said it plans and even expects to do. Can they do it? Well, no. Not unless we have people inside this country who do their work for them. And we have had exactly that for a long, long time. Trump has made the contest clearer. Do we want a smaller federal government that returns more of the power to the states and the counties and the cities and the towns? Do we want a smaller bureaucracy, therefore, which perhaps the nation can afford, while also making sure our national retirement fund doesn't run dry, that the people who need medical help can get it, while also keeping the military strong? If we think bigger government is the answer, then we are doomed, because we're already spending way, way, way more money than we take in, and going socialist means spending even more money. What it means is borrowing more and more money and driving the debt so deep, the weight of it so great, that the backbone of the nation breaks and we go the way of other once great civilizations. It's real. Bankruptcy and the great crumble is within sight unless Trump and others like him help keep us focused on the way out of this quicksand. Old saying, if you're in a deep hole, the first order of business is to stop digging, and we haven't done that. Maybe if we do that, take Doge several steps farther, we will reach the place where the nation has a little bit extra in the bank, and then our kids, 2 generations from now maybe, can have the left versus right debate, because they'll be making enough money to have that conversation. We need to go from trillion-dollar deficits to annual surpluses, year after year after year surpluses, if we're ever going to get out from under the mountain of debt we already have. The fact is, it may already be too late. We may lack the political will. Sure looks that way, doesn't it? Draining the swamp in Washington is one thing. The swamp creatures are people who know only one thing, one way to approach problems, and that is how to spend your money. They cannot dream of turning their agencies into profit centers. In other words, spending less than they are given to spend. The system isn't set up that way, and they don't want to change it. I mean, Jesus, there is so much, so many tentacles, so many holes in the dike. You pick the analogy. It's a lot to even think of covering in a little chat like this. I mean, these are whole areas of study that we don't do anymore. Imagine what a big job it is in the real world where Trump lives and where whoever will succeed him lives. We've got to be smart about this as a nation. Still there? Good. I'm glad. It would be great to see the war in Ukraine end, wouldn't it? Particularly good for Europe, where there are other former Soviet bloc countries that have reason to worry about Vladimir Putin's expansionist dreams. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, who have demonstrated some amazing negotiating and diplomatic talents on the world stage, say they have had some constructive talks with Putin about ending the war. Here's what's true about starting and ending wars. Countries do it for reasons. They don't just wake up one day and say, I think I'll go take over my neighbor, unless my neighbor has something I want or that I think I need. See, that's the Ukraine story. How do you turn that around? Well, you either smash the bully, the acquisitor, and make sure they can't do that again, or you work out a way forward doing business that turns the bully into a friend. That first option, smashing, is not available where Russia is concerned. It is a superpower, not called the Great Bear for nothing. But it does like money and security. The big old bear may be immensely powerful, as bears are, but this one is insecure, thinks it needs a buffer around it, remembers the vaunted days of the USSR. If Vladimir Putin could come to understand that he and his country will be vastly stronger and more secure if it is financially and socially more successful, he might be brought into the fold. That's the hope, of course. The real problem is the bigger battle for global power. China wants to be king. China plans and plays a very long game and is quite willing to make friends and form its own coalition, including other very powerful countries like Russia, in order to get there. What the U.S. must do is drive an economic wedge, a wedge of financial promise and success between Russia and China. Get Russia to see that if it becomes a powerhouse economically, because of its relationship with the U.S., and yes, with Ukraine, and England, and Germany, and France, and so forth, we, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, and America, would get Russia to come in from the cold. Then an era of global growth might actually occur. If that were to happen, China would get the word. And they would have to play nice with Japan and Taiwan and Korea, India, Australia, and every other country that lives too close for comfort to Beijing. I mean, dang, everything we encounter today seems to be complicated, doesn't it? Do no harm. It's part of the moral imperative for doctors. So when the rich and famous who like to get high, who get themselves hooked on drugs, ask their private doctors, who they pay a lot of money to give them drugs the doctor knows has to be a dumb idea, the Hippocratically inspired doctor is supposed to say, no, go find another doctor. Or listen to me, this stuff will kill you. But they don't do that. Why? Because they might go find another doctor. They will get paid a lot of money. And so it is with actor Matthew Perry, who died taking ketamine. It's a drug that'll make you feel like you've been anesthetized, which you have been. You become a rag doll. And it makes you feel good, pain-free, because it does that. It'll also make you see things that are not there because it's mildly hallucinogenic, and any depression you had goes away until you come down, of course. It can be good for therapy, dangerous when you're dosing yourself just for the party of it all. They're going to put Dr. Salvatore Plasencia in jail, sentencing today for providing Matthew Perry with ketamine. 5 people were part of the Pusher Brigade and were convicted of crimes for giving it to him. Hats off to Werner Neubauer. You probably never heard of him. He's an electric utility lineman in Arizona. Dangerous job working around high power lines. Just a bit more dangerous in the job in Cochise County when he went to save a black bear. A bear had climbed a utility pole, one with 3 transformers on it, and enough electricity to turn him into a really big, crispy critter. Up Werner went in the cherry picker, one of those utility bucket trucks. He spent a long time up there, poking at the bear with a fiberglass stick to convince the animal to climb down. Didn't want to grab the bear, that's for sure. He was downright cranky after being poked with the pole. And besides, there were these electric cables, lots of them, enough to turn the bear's lights off. He stayed with it, and eventually the bear figured it out, came down safely, and departed the area, last seen jogging across the brown and dusty ground in the direction of some distant woods. Way to go, Mr. Neubauer. I think that'll do it for today's Harley on the Headlines. I really appreciate you being there. If you get anything good from these visits, hope you'll come back and help spread the word by hitting the right buttons on your phone or your computer. Maybe even tell some folks that Harley's back and he just won't hush. Best to you. I'm Harley Carnes. We'll talk again soon.